Today we are going to go over the most commonly asked questions by ADC mates. Last month, I set up a Q&A on my Discord where I said, ask anything and I will make a video answering all the questions. And today, I am making that video because ranked is down. It's funny, I tried to start stream, but then I realized there was no ranked because the game was patching. So we are going to go over every single question, and I'm going to answer all of these in this video. Alrighty, let's see. First question. I feel like it's a question that must have been asked before because I've seen low elo players like me complain about it in the comments of your videos and in Twitch chat. In low elo, mid laners tend to not understand that their job is to go side lane after bot tier 1 or plates are gone, and they're just grief your waves for no reason, share gold and XP. Sometimes even top and jungle come mid to take your waves. What should I do? Let the side waves crash and get completely wasted while I share with mid lane who gets angry at me, ? Contesting mid wave tends to be a battle of who gets the wave first. Then we die because we're going too deep trying to be the one that gets the gold. Or B, get side waves instead of mid waves and be completely irrelevant / vulnerable ? I tend to try to communicate and try to be nice, but it rarely works. Thanks for your time and expertise. So this is actually a very common issue that I ran into, especially when playing in the lower ranks. They will, in fact, support and mid will, in fact, just randomly take your waves. It's actually kind of insane. I had many support players. They're playing like Zyra or Xerath and just like one-shotting your mid wave and then dying is actually kind of crazy. So this is my advice, okay? At the end of the day, ADC's job is to min-max your gold and XP in the mid-game, okay? Your job is to figure out how to do that. Now, by default, we go mid after getting the bot tier 1 because it is the safest spot for you to be in order to collect gold and XP. But if your teammates are sharing with you, sometimes it is better to go side. And also sometimes, maybe you can't go side because, side lane is like a Fed Z or something. So it really just depends on the game. If, let's say, for example, my mid laner refused to leave mid, my first instinct is, okay, can I get the side wave? Okay, can I pick up the side wave under tower? Can I use my sums to outplay enemy solo laner dive? If we can, perfect. If we cannot, let's just share mid. Okay, and we'll do our best with man advantage while the enemy solo is showing on the side of the map, right? We'll use man advantage to start the Rift Herald or the Grubs, or sorry, probably not Grubs because Grubs spawn in like 6 minutes, right? But like, let's do the Rift Herald. Let's pressure tier 1 top. Let's pressure tier 1 mid. Let's take a fight. That kind of stuff. So yeah, I would say do what you must to maximize your golden XP. If somehow, for some reason, you cannot, you can just share mid. And if your teammates die, you can pick up the waves for yourself. So, next question. Sometimes in low elo games, there's no towers taken after 17 plus minutes. Do you carry on laning or do you just move to mid game and lane swap? What do you do? ? So at the 17-minute mark, if you guys are still laning, something is wrong. You do want to be mid, okay? So the reason being is if you're in a side lane at that late of the game, it's actually quite easy for the enemy team to play through mid and then dive your tower bot, right? What I mean by play through mid is, they send their support and their jungle to pressure mid, and then, you can't get the mid push, they get the mid push, and then they rotate to your side, you can't do anything, and you get dove, right? So usually at the 8, 9+ minute mark, team play starts happening. So what that means is that stuff that happens top lane is actually going to affect you bot, right? And you can't really freeze. So 17 minutes is like kind of nuts. So around like, I would say 14, 15 minutes, on your next base, you just go mid and then play through mid. But, in super low elo games, there's nothing wrong with laning at 17+ minutes. As long as you're getting your golden XP, we're happy, right? Chubbles asks, how many games of League do you recommend climbing? And would you prefer a slow climb over a fast climb, bronze to emerald? I think in terms of games for climbing, you should be focused on improving. And I think according to studies, 4 to 6 hours of focused improvement like playing to improve seems to be the sweet spot for most people. So I would say something like anywhere between 6 to 8 games, 4 to 10 games, something like that. 4 to 6 hours of laser focus improvement where you are focusing on building good habits that will allow you to elevate your gameplay without thinking. Like you're trying to habit stack, build habits on top of habits you already have to make yourself better. And just like playing piano, once you pass a certain threshold, let's say you're playing like 12 hours, you're probably just getting worse. You're just playing tired, unfocused, you're not improving. Okay. And would I prefer a slow climb over a fast climb? I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I'm not sure what the difference between slow climb or fast. I mean, slow climb means maybe we're not improving as fast, and a fast climb means we're kind of beast moding it up. So I guess I would prefer a fast climb. What is the most rewarding ADC to learn to climb out of low elo to masters? I would say rewarding is different for the person playing. So for many people, the most rewarding ADC is just whatever is strongest. They'll take whatever. I'll take whatever requires the least amount of skill to get me the most amount of wins, right? And so in that case, I would say I would just play Quirky. If I had no champion pool and knowing what I know, I would just play Quirky every game to climb to Masters easy. Quirky is very strong early, very strong mid game. He's basically playing ADC on easy mode. He functions as a solo laner, really. The power level of a solo laner while playing ADC is kind of broken. If you're talking about like skill, like having high skill and being like satisfied in the sense of, or being rewarded in the sense of use a lot of skill to get this stuff done, Caitlyn is pretty good. That's why we play a lot of Caitlyn. A lot of skill can translate into good results, even though the champion itself is not really doing too hot. Another really rewarding ADC in that sense, like mechanical sense, is Kai'Sa. I think Kai'Sa's not that great, but she's super fun. And when you learn her auto cancels and her mechanics, her combos like RW or W flash, it can be really fun to and really rewarding to get kills with that champion. But yeah, if you want the most bang for your buck, you just play Quirky, honestly. This guy says, I love playing Caitlyn, and thanks to her content, can somewhat consistently carry on her. Now I'm trying to expand my champion pool, but nothing seems to be clicking or much fun. Any advice on champs to try? I've played a decent amount of MF and Corki, and I don't mind them, but I don't love them either. I've tried Jinn, but it wasn't fun. Might just be because I was shit though. Any input appreciated. I actually hard int when Caitlyn is banned or picked by the enemy. If you like this Caitlyn style, like play style where we just try and scale until 3 items and start carrying, I think you can try some Jinx. Jinx is also a long-range ADC. Well, when she has her rockets, and similarly, you're playing through your abilities until you get to the late game through Jinx Zap, Jinx Rocket, and then late game, you play through your reset 3 item, hitting the closest guy, popping off. You could try some Jinx. I would say you could also try a different style of ADC. You mentioned MF Quirky Jinn. You haven't tried an all-in style champion. Stuff like Varus, stuff like Vayne, stuff like Kai'Sa even. These champions have all-in potential, so maybe you could try those and branch out a little bit. But honestly, it's just a matter of, sorting through the most commonly picked ADCs and then just trying them out top to bottom. I use u.gg. You can use whatever site you want, but oftentimes when I'm exploring my options, I just look at what's most played / what seems to be good but not many people play, and then try it out. All right, this guy says, what do you do when this? I'll confess, I did see the video so to make sure it wasn't showing anything too weird, but it's basically he's showing that he's doing really well as Caitlyn, and then I think he ends up starts to die to Nocturne jungle, right? And he's like, what do you do when your good early game gets ruined by a strong jungler? And in every clip he showed, it's just him dying to Nocturne ult, right? So you have to remember that other people are, it's going to sound stupid, but you have to remember that other people are playing the game too. right? So when you're playing Caitlyn, you're focused on what is my champion good at. I'm going to try and land Qs, okay? So you have to think your opponent is playing Nocturne. What are they trying to do? They're trying to press R on you, right? They're trying to ulti you. So one way to help with this is play from the perspective of your opponents. When you get to the mid game, when you get to the later stages of the laning phase, you can, before the new wave comes, you can press tab and look at how the enemy can engage. Sometimes enemy jungle can engage, sometimes enemy support can engage. You got to look at the champions specifically and be like, okay, how do these guys engage, and how are they going to try and engage on me? So enemy team has a Nocturne jungle who's fed. That means the instant you show up on the mid wave, he's already thinking he wants to ulti you, right? Let's say they are playing like a Fiddlesticks. That means, they're going to try and hide in a bush and then ulti you after a team fight breaks out, when you're trying to auto someone. So you need to think through, you need to look at the game through the perspective of your opponent. That is the best advice I can give you. What are your hobbies or things you enjoy when not playing League? Love your content. Oh, thanks for the nice comment. Well, current hobbies, I guess, are playing League and playing League. I mean, honestly, I'm just spending a lot of time doing content creation and figuring out ways to improve the stream/YouTube video. But I have been playing tennis a lot recently, and I am going swing dancing in about a few days. So yeah, I guess that / just hang out with friends in general. Oh, and board games. I don't know if you guys play Dune, the board game, but that's a fun one. That's a fun one. And I guess, of course, a little bit of brain rotting and reading in bed as hobbies, I guess. I haven't played it much, but Yanto Jinn has consistently felt not bad. What do you think? Am I trolling? Does it have legitimate merit? This is by Yab Yinda, one of our challenger viewers, maybe our only challenger viewer, honestly. It looks like he did really well with Yanto Jinn. The idea is that the Yanto stats with attack speed will feed into Jinn's attack speed into AD ratio conversion, so it gives him more damage, and also gives him more move speed, because if he crits, he gets move speed based on his attack speed, right? So I think that it's probably not good, to be honest. It takes a long time to stack Yanto when you can only auto attack a certain amount of times on Jinn. And then also buying Yanto is extremely painful in lane. You need a 1300 gold base. So it's probably not great, but from ahead, it's probably not bad. You got extra damage, you got extra move speed on crit. I'm sure it can work, but trying to force every game will probably have issues. So this guy says, how can I theory craft matchups better? It's very easy to know how to play generally. For example, with Nami, you want short trades, but versus Nami, all-ins are better. But it can be tough when it comes to specific things. Watching VODs, I find, doesn't help as much as it should, because they're already playing a few layers of the matchup I don't see. If I can name another example, I really like the Draven matchup guide Metro Archer put up on his YouTube. Shout out to Metro Archer. He's a beast Caitlyn one trick on E West. Made that matchup way easier for K versus Draven specifically, but I like to be able to come up with ideas myself. Since there's very limited videos like this, it's also frustrating because it's not as hard finding documentation on matchups for other lanes. Just bot always has no documentation due to the nature of 2v2s. I think basically what he's asking is, how can I figure out my lane matchups better? Okay, and the easiest way to approach this is just, what does your bot lane want to do? What are you strong at? And then once you figure that out, you compare it to, what does the enemy bot lane want to do? What are they strong at? And then you, of course, look at it through the lens of when you guys want to fight. So you guys want to fight over minions, and my bot lane is going to try and do this to them when he wants a minion, and they're going to try and do this to me when I want a minion, right? And so he was saying he knows how to play generally. So like, against Nami, don't really want to trade because Nami's going to heal up her ADC, right? So when you go for a minion, they're going to try and trade with you, right? So he knows how to play generally. But when it comes to specific things, like, I'm not exactly sure which specific things he's talking about, but let's just say, for example, it's like Nami Lucian, and instead of just short trade, now they can like all in. There's like certain dynamics to the bot lane when it comes to bot combo. Then it's like the matchup's a little bit different, right? I think the best way to approach this is just make sure you play the matchup strictly at first. Okay, let's say I'm playing with a Soraka with Caitlyn. I am only going to look for the things Soraka's good at, which is Soraka Q-Poke and Soraka healing. So I'm going to take short trades with Headshot or Net, and then I'm going to try and push and help her Q-Poke them under tower. I'm going to play only for that. I'm not going to do anything outside the matchup. Okay? And then, not only that, let's say you're playing against Lucian Nami, and they want to trade, and they want to all-in, I am going to play strictly away from that. So I'm not going to take any all-ins. I'm not going to trade with Lucian. You see how, like, we wanted to trade with Soraka. They want to trade with Lucian, but I think their trade is better. Okay, we don't trade, right? Unless you can 2v1 trade the Nami, where Lucian's not in the picture. But that's impossible because Lucian has dash, right? So maybe that's the specifics he's talking about. But a lot of the specifics comes from experience in playing the matchups and spotting these patterns. Like, for example, when I was like just saying how in trade versus trade matchup, we want to aim the support, like, you know, Caitlyn Soraka, let's aim the Nami in a short trade because Lucian's not involved. But then you try and do that and Lucian dashes in and he becomes involved very quickly. It's because I've tried that. You know, I've tried to 2v1 the Nami, Lucian dash out of nowhere, auto Q into ulti. I'm like, oh god, like this is a mistake, right? So it's very much a come up with an idea of how you want to play, and then go execute it, see how it went. You know, trial and error a lot of times, right? Can you explain base timers like leaving at a good time to come back and catch waves as such? So by default, having a good base timer means going home without losing without losing too many minions, ideally 0. Sometimes it's impossible to lose 0 minions, but you don't want to lose anything crazy like an entire wave, right? The best time to base is, generally speaking, after a kill has happened in the bot lane, crash that wave, go home. Because if you don't go home, then the person who dies is going to spawn and come back to lane, and you're gonna get trapped. You can't leave lane without losing a wave, right? If nobody has died, then if you are in a position of strength, you're the one pushing in and crashing, you can just base after crash, right? Or even better, base after crash, and then the next wave is a cannon wave, right? Because it's hard for the enemy bot lane to crash a cannon wave while you're at home. Another good base timer, let's say we're not in control of the lane, is we just survive until they're forced to go home, or you think they go home. And oftentimes 2v2 they might be winning, but your jungle pressure or mid pressure, because mid is pushing, allows you to go home because they feel afraid. You guys have traded away all your HP. They can't stay under your tower with a low HP. So then they're like, we gotta go home. Then you go home at the same time. Okay, so match tempo with the enemy bot lane that's winning, right? Those are kind of your main angles to base. Mortal Reminder versus LDR. I know you always say LDR, but my friend disagrees. So I loaded up practice tool to do some science. I don't know if the way I set up the experiment is wrong, but here is the data. Seems like there's only a 10 to 30 damage difference, and he's got like a little Google spreadsheet of comparing collector, i.e. RFC LDR versus Mortal Reminder instead of LDR. Yeah, I think this is for Caitlyn. I would say that the issue, generally speaking, the issue with LDR versus Mortal Reminder is that you are losing damage when you buy Mortal Reminder. There is a 5% armor pen diff, right? If I remember correctly. Sorry, correct me if I'm wrong in the YouTube comments. But when you play the ADC role, depending on what ADC you're playing, you cannot afford to not do full damage. If you buy a Mortal Reminder on Caitlyn, for example, Caitlyn specifically, you are not going to have as high of a carry potential as you should. Someone else should be buying the heal cut. The only time when ADC should be buying the heal cut is you're playing a support-ish role on your team. Let's say you're playing Saber, right? And you're just playing to W bounce and support your team with your ulti and bait abilities with your E. You don't need to go for full damage, as so you can go Mortal Reminder and spread the heal cut. But Caitlyn specifically, when you hit them, they better instantly die, usually speaking, when you headshot them. So, I don't think they're really healing through your damage, so to speak. You're trying to kill them with 5 autos. You aren't going to kill them anyways. You're not going to kill them without headshots, right? The way Caitlyn's damage works is very bursty, right? So, they're not going to like heal tank you. So it's just a matter of, can your champion afford to buy Mortal Reminder? Oftentimes the answer is no, in my opinion. But of course, that is just my opinion. You should always build what you think is good. Okay. But personally, I have not built a Mortal Reminder in my last like 100 games. So what do you do when there's a Mundo in the game? I feel like it's not interactive at all, and I cannot for the life of me figure out how I can do anything. Well, it kind of depends on the champion you're playing and your power spikes and where the Mundo is in the game. This guy is probably asking from a point of view where Mundo is unkillable and running at him and doing a ton of damage. So I would say to that, it's kind of like a check to see, did you make enough money in that game? Did you make the right decisions to get enough money to do damage so that Mundo cannot just be completely unkillable, right? And let's use Caitlyn as an example. And then we did not have a very good laning phase. We didn't have a very good mid game. Mundo's unkillable, nothing you can do, right? Let's say we had a good game, a good mid game, and Mundo's still unkillable. Okay, but we have 3 items. Maybe we can play to headshot a squishy champion rather than dumping headshot on a Mundo, right? So you gotta figure out a way to get to your item spikes to do damage to the Mundo guy, or get to your item spikes so you can do damage to someone that's not the Mundo guy. Maybe I haven't found the video yet, but I wonder how to play certain support matchups. I main Caitlyn, so I push the enemy into their tower, but all-in supports want to be pushed in so they can engage on the bounce, right? Question mark? Yes. I tend to struggle against engage/all-in supports because they hook me whenever wave is neutral or they are pushed. I think oftentimes when this happens, it's because you are trying to hit a minion and you are not aware of the enemy support trying to engage. You just kind of like ignore them, right? You like hit the minion and then all of a sudden Leona is eating onto you, right? Your job is to pretend to hit the minion, bait the engage, dodge the hook, dodge the Leona E, whatever, and then make their support useless for the next 10 seconds, which allows you to keep pushing them in, keep applying pressure, bait the enemy jungle, etc., etc. Right? So I think it's just it just sounds like you're not thinking about what the enemy support is trying to do, because just because you're playing against an all-in bot lane doesn't mean you can't push them in, right? So yeah, and then he has added, what do you do if your game plan pushing in matches theirs, being pushed in, does it become a skill matchup? Yes. You basically need to, let's say we're playing Caitlyn Zyra, playing against Kai'Sa Alistar, you need to poke the Alistar down without getting comboed successfully, right? You need to find a way to keep your game plan, keep pushing them in, keep trying to apply pressure, trying to bait the jungler, and also not get comboed by Alistar, which should be simple. I mean, he's pretty short range compared to your auto, so if he combos, he has to kind of flash for it, but you have flash too, so you can flash out, right? How to get better at itemization. As an example, if I'm playing against an AP carry who's gotten fed, is it better to rush Hexdrinker/Maul or finish core items first? Also, what makes certain items core items compared to others? So generally speaking, on ADC, we need to build items in order to be useful. We are a role locked by gold and XP, but mostly gold. So you need to make enough money to do damage to the closest guy. That's generally the rule of thumb, is you need to make enough money to be able to carry. That's basically at the point where you can carry, right? So if you're playing against an AP carry who's gotten fed, and then you rush Hexdrinker or Maul, then you have failed the first task, which is get enough money to become a threat. If you finish a Maul first, then yeah, maybe it doesn't one-shot you, but you also don't do anything for the whole game, and then you guys lose because it's 4v5, right? So, I mean, if it would be insane if your first 3 items as ADC was like GA, Maul, and like a Warmox. Okay, we're unkillable, but you also do nothing, okay? So the first order of business is building items that allow you to pressure the closest guy. And what makes certain items core items compared to others is items that work well with your champion. right? Let's use Kog'Maw as an example. Items that work well with this champion is Rage Blade, because it can double his on-hit effects, and his W is an on-hit effect, right? So it works really well with Kog'Maw, and once you have the Rage Blade, you can threaten the closest guy. So it's a core item, right? That's kind of how you look at itemization. So when in doubt, you just build more damage, because you can never have enough damage. But you can make a mistake by building too much defensive. Here's a question. If you're rolling Symbiotic, you accidentally accumulate 1300. Is it still always Yomi's first and makes it pivot to Yanto Jinn? Unfortunately, Symbiotic Souls is basically removed from the game, so this question doesn't really apply anymore. But if you are going the Symbiotic Souls strategy, I would have always bought the Symbiotic Souls. Even though I had 1300, I never pivot. How to deal with beefy team comps. Do you plan on making a Kog'Maw video anytime soon? Build playstyle. How does the fast shoe stack work on him, etc.? Beefy team comps. A lot of times, kind of harkens back to the earlier question. Oftentimes you guys struggle with beefy team comps because you did not make the money that you needed to in order to do damage to the beefy guys. You need to, guys, the default is having 10 CS a minute, 0-0 score line. So you should have 250 CS by 25 minutes by default. If we are not making that breakpoint in gold, oftentimes we have failed our job. Not always, but oftentimes we have failed our job. And if the enemy front line is unkillable because of that, then that's just a matter of decision making and whatever happened earlier in the game for us to not make enough money. The way you deal with beefy team comps is to have enough money to do damage to them. That's basically it. And then if you cannot win because they're too beefy, you cannot fight those objectives. You're fighting for the third dragon, but their Scion is literally unkillable. He's gonna 1v5 you guys. You cannot fight. Go and trade sides. Go get objectives on the other side of the map. Use that time to make the money so that you can eventually kill him. And I'm not sure if I plan on making a Kog'Maw video anytime soon, but if there's interest, then yeah, I'll make a Kog'Maw video. So if you guys want to see a Kog'Maw video, let me know. How do you develop an absolutely lethal instinct in this game? I'm silver and try to play for level 2, but I played against this plat/emerald pike, and as soon as he hit level 2, he E-flash ignite Q and I died while my brain was still processing what happened. Seriously, is it just reactions or recognizing gameplay patterns? The difference was startling and no other pike has ever done this to me. It is definitely just recognizing gameplay patterns. The real only reason why you're surprised is because you haven't seen it enough times. I've seen pike E-flash all in on level 2 like hundreds of times, so I'm not as surprised, right? Developing a lethal instinct in the game is simply just playing enough to recognize patterns that happen often in the game, like the level 2 power spike, right? You don't have to play a ton of games to spot the patterns. Oftentimes, just watching your replay will help you spot these patterns you normally wouldn't spot otherwise. You know how like chess players go over their games and they try and figure out, okay, what's the best move here? And then they'll spot patterns that way. It's actually the exact same for League of Legends, but no League player on average, for most people watching the video, I don't want to assume, but I would assume most people watching the video, you do not watch your VODs, right? You don't watch your VODs. So if you want to develop a better pattern recognition, I highly implore you to watch your VODs and at the very least watch your deaths. But oftentimes the whole thing can be very interesting in spotting what you're doing wrong. Like for example, I watched one of my VODs recently. I was like, oh my god, I'm trolling every Caitlyn Q. It's not something you would notice if you just watch the deaths, right? Okay, and I think that is it for the questions for this week, or I guess month. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys found it interesting. If you guys want to see more, let me know. If you want to ask questions yourself, I will post a week 2, or I guess video 2, in the Discord. I'll make a thread, and then you guys can come and ask questions. But yeah, let me know what you guys learned, if anything, from the video. And thank you for watching.